Good evening and welcome to this Monday, May 10th edition of the Referee Corner here on IronStats.com. I'm your host, Earl Bass, and I'm joined by a host of FIFA officials in their own right. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. And guys, what I would like for you to do is just give us a little bit of background of yourself in officiating after you give us your name. We'll start off with you, Kevin.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Kevin Clark. I live in Barbados. I've been a FIFA assistant referee. This is my 4th year, and I've been refereeing for I think this is about 7 or 8 years now. And probably the highest level of competition that I would have done would be the CONCACAF League quarterfinals. So yeah, that's just a quick something for me.
Okay. And Jermaine?
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeremy Neesing. I'm from Jamaica. A little backstory. I've been a referee since 2009. I went on the international list in 2018. Yeah, so this would be my 4th year. And FIFA World Cup qualifier. That is the highest competition. Yeah, the highest ranking competition I've done since.
Okay, good stuff. And let's go to you, Wasna.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Wasna Barnard. I'm from Antigua and Barbuda. I've been refereeing for about 11 years now, locally, and I've been on the platform, the FIFA panel, for about 3 years in 2019. The highest level
Okay, he's having a bit of internet. Kevin, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm Kevin Friend. I'm from England. I'm a Premier League referee. I've been refereeing since 1985, so a long time. I've been on the English Premier League since 2009 and done some of the competitions in UEFA as well.
Okay, all right, welcome. Shannon?
Hi, good evening. My name is Shannon Gibson. I'm from Barbados, and I was refereeing since 2015. And probably my highest level was the CONCACAF finals.
Okay. And finally, last but not least, Leinster?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Mienza, and I'm from Suriname. I've been an assistant referee since 2014, and since 2017 on the referee list. And my highest match was the Women's Championship between USA and Canada. Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, but we might have you up, Mian. So let me ask you, what got you started into officiating?
I used to play football from the national team of Suriname since 2018, and from 2018 till 2014. So after that, I retired because I wanted to be an international player, but seems like it was difficult for me. So then I always ask myself the question, why does a referee give a yellow card or shows a red card? And I wanted to know more about the law. So I was thinking about if I had to stop playing, I can do something else that has to do with football, and that could be refereeing. So that's one of my steps that I made to one of the reasons why I went to do refereeing. Yes.
Okay. What about you, Shannon? How did you get started?
Okay, well, just like me, I said, I used to play football, and then we had a referee course. So as a part of our club had sent us to do the referee course, and then I ended up getting a like for it. So then I just continued because then we wanted female officials, so I just stick with it.
Okay. All right. And Jermaine, how did you get started?
How I got started was a funny story. But well, every Sunday evening I would usually go play football with my friends, and we had this competition amongst ourselves where we played other teams, and my friend he was actually refereeing the game. There was some incident in it, and he got frustrated with the game and wanted somebody else to do it. I took it up and I liked it, and from then, yeah, here I am.
You made the most out of it. What about you, Kevin?
Well, I was actually playing football in our second highest division here in Barbados, and my coach came to me and he said, "Well, right now you're training a multinational team, but the question that I want to ask you is, how do you see that going, or what position do you see yourself in 5 years if you continue trying to do that?" And I really had an honest moment with him at that point in time, and I said, "Well, I don't think I'm ever going to make the senior national team. But I still have a liking for football. I still want to be around the footballing environment." So then he had a conversation with me about several different roles that you could have still related to football, coaching, managing, several different things. And fortunately enough, within a couple of weeks, the association was holding a refereeing course. So he asked me why I wouldn't try the refereeing course. And so I did. I signed up for the refereeing course. And well, since then, the rest has been history, basically.
Okay. All right. Let's try Lasna. We lost you
So
for a second there, but yeah. What got you
I'm
started
back
into
on.
officiating?
Right, for me it was about the same year 2011 where I used to play football. So after I realized that the knocks and cuts and bruises from football wasn't really beneficial to me, I decided to follow some guys from the village by the name of Denmo Roberts and Curtis Charles, just to name a few. And they told me to come around the association for football referee association. I just kept learning and learning the laws, and I stuck with it. A couple of years after that, I got a course, and then I just stuck with football because it was beneficial to me. Refereeing, I mean, it was beneficial to me.
Yeah.
That's my story.
Yeah. Kevin, I'm not going to ask you how did you get started because you said you've been officiating since '85, and I don't want you to have to go all the way back there. But how has the game changed for you? I mean, you've gone through quite a few transitions in English football at the local level, and then obviously internationally.
Yeah, I think over the course of the year, so it's a long time since I've started refereeing. But what I found is just the speed of the game and technically players how they've come forward and moved on so much over the years. What you look at how the style of play was probably 10 years ago is a lot different now under like your Liverpool or Man City, which is very much possession based, but then they break so quickly with a counter attack. And one of the biggest things is, the hardest thing I think for us nowadays is as referees, we're getting older and older, and the players seem to be getting younger and younger. So we still have to keep up with them. I'm hoping one day that we can actually referee with a Segway or something like that, so I can actually try and keep up with it better with them.
That's in the cards. It's another VAR material too.
I'm hoping so. We can have a nice little screen on there or something like that.
Sure.
I can always come out to Bermuda and test drive it or something like that. It's not a problem at all.
You're all welcome to Bermuda. I do have Mr. Williams, Mr. Cranston Williams, the head of refereeing in Bermuda. Good evening, Mr. Williams. How are you?
Good evening, all. I'm doing okay so far. I'm glad to see that everybody is able to get on.
Okay. We just initially started our chat, but the local game in your various places, how do you find that in preparing yourself for international level? Because Internationally, obviously, when you guys go to your FIFA courses and all that, the tempo is much higher. But how do you find the local game assists you in preparing for international competition? And I'm going to start with you, Wasna.
Well, for me here in Caribbean, it's funny you asked that. A friend of mine was asking me, was telling me why we referees in the Caribbean tend to be so fit because they now may play a little bit boom boom, what we call boom boom football. So just get collect it and kick it long. So internationally, for me to get to the style of how certain teams like maybe a Honduras or Cuba playing a lot of different styles, that exposure for me. That exposure for me goes a long way. So the local game helps me to get sharp in terms of running. Every minute you have to be running, and the international now. Like, when I have to run, I will be there because I'm so accustomed to it. That's me.
Mienza, how about you? Can you hear me? You got to unmute. You muted yourself. Okay, she's dropped out. Kevin, let's come to you. Obviously you mentioned the game has changed so much, but how does the local game or the Premier Division game set you up internationally?
So it's about, I think for me, it's about understanding and managing players, looking at what players do domestically within England. And obviously there's a lot of foreign players within the English game, within the Premier League. So it's understanding and how to manage them better moving forward. And then when we go out internationally into UEFA, you can actually learn and understand different cultures, how teams then play, set themselves up, and the psychology of actually the football in different countries, because obviously it changes so much. Because in England, when we go abroad, we can go from as far as close as France all the way over to far end of Russia, refereeing internationally and what have you. So you can look at the cultures and how the style of football is. It's totally different, and one of the biggest things is actually understanding, managing expectations as well within the game.
Okay, good stuff. I'm going to come back to Mienza. Let me see if we got you on now. Do we have you? You got to unmute. There you go.
Hello?
Yeah.
Our women's league is also, and most of the games I'm doing are men's games. So then I have to be up to date with the men's, and I have to do only men's games to be on top level to participate on the international level. So it's better for me because of the women's league in our country on the highest level.
Okay, I got the gist of most of that. Shannon, what about you?
So in my country, like I mostly do men's football because our women's league is not that. But we don't have women's league that regular, so we mostly do men's football. So to me, it's kind of better for me to do men's football because the men are more technical than the women, and then we mostly have you will have more men's football than women's football. So it will prepare us so that when they go over to do women's football, it wouldn't be as hard as if we're doing the men's game.
Yeah. Let me ask you though, what is that like for a female? Your personal experiences doing men's games.
Honestly, at first it was very hard because dealing with men and like say you make a call and then like sometimes the men don't agree like if it was the right call or the wrong call. But it was hard at first. But as the weeks go by and you're doing the football becomes easier as the weeks go by.
Oh, okay. All right. Jermaine, how does that local game set you up?
How the local games are when it was playing.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, here in Jamaica it's quite competitive. It really gives you enough to do games within the Caribbean, but it doesn't match up to teams that are in Central America. Of course, America. But it does give you enough as a measuring stick to gauge yourself and be prepared for the competitions that plays within CONCACAF.
Okay. All right. What about you, Kevin?
Well, for me, when I'm doing the local games, I try to focus a lot on the technical aspects of my refereeing. Because the local teams in Barbados, I mean, they wouldn't be up to the standard of here in Barbados. We have a semi-professional league, so sometimes a lot of guys who are just training like 2 times a week and trying to train after they come in from work, that kind of stuff. So the matching the level of football, for instance, as in with the CONCACAF League, where you have teams like Managua and Matagua who are professional footballers who their job is to play football. The pace and the technical aspect of the game is quite different between the local league, obviously, and the professional leagues. So I try my best in the local league to focus a lot on my technical work, stuff like my alignment, that kind of thing. Working on the basics to make sure that when I do get the higher level games, that the extras that I add on to the basics, it's nice to have a good foundation. So definitely when I'm at home during my local league and stuff, I'm making sure that practicing the basics, making sure that I have everything covered so that when I get onto the international stage that there's a strong foundation to add on to match the level of the games that I would be officiating.
Okay. Now let me ask about. We've had a lot of stoppages over the last year or so with this COVID. Kevin, obviously for you, it was a period of stop, but then a restart. Take us through what it's like to officiate a match in an empty stadium that's not a practice match of sorts. It's kind of for real.
It is, and it's very surreal as well. And you gear yourself up for it, and obviously we're used to spectators, and when there's nobody there, you can hear everything that goes on. And it has the plus, but also the minus. I think the plus, you can actually hear contact between players when they're going into the penalty area, and like you're watching for any type of foul challenge and stuff like that. If somebody trips somebody, you can actually hear that. Which helps and aids the decision-making process for us as referees. But the downside is you can actually hear everything that the players are saying. And sometimes, obviously, we know it's not quite nice what they say. And so we have to be careful then what we say back, just in case that gets picked up. And again, with the managers from the sideline, I've had a couple of run-ins this season so far since the restart where managers have shouted a few things towards myself. Obviously, I think it's positive coaching instructions they're trying to give me. And it's sort of like, a couple of times I've gone across to actually remind them of the responsibility and let them know that, there is a microphone quite close to them. So what they're saying, I can hear, plus everybody else can hear, and there's an echo. So just being careful of what they're doing and what they're saying. And but one of the biggest things I think for me is to make sure that we don't switch off as referees. I'm a big believer in motivation within the team, within our my refereeing team that I've got, the four of us, and throughout the game, because there's no fans in there, you sometimes lose that little bit of intensity that you would get when they're spectators. So it's actually making sure that our game is still raised, that we're still performing to the highest level. We're not losing focus or concentration because nothing much is happening. So as the referee, the leader of the team, I drive fully on actually making sure that we deliver high expectations in what we do throughout the game.
I'm going to ask everyone if they remember the first international game that they'd done and how they felt going into it. and of course I'm gonna start with you, Jermaine, because you got a big smile on your face. You must have a funny story. Do you remember your first one?
Oh yes, my first game was yes, my first game was between Cuba and Turks and Caicos. It was a CONCACAF Nations League game. Yes, it was. Actually, it wasn't, but it was my first international game outside of Jamaica. It
Okay.
was my first international game outside of Jamaica, and yes, we went to Cuba. Cuba is quite amazing. It is like going back in time. Um, well, yeah. So that game ended 11-0 in favor of Cuba. It was not as what I expected from an international game. The stadium was different. It was a bit old. It was a real wake up call for me as an international referee. I got to appreciate Jamaica, the country that I'm from, and the facilities that we are given are what I'm accustomed to. It's really a privilege. But the entire journey was really funny. I stayed over in Panama, and I was nearly bitten by dogs. I went out for dinner. I had to run for my life. I was saying to myself, imagine I've never been bitten in Jamaica and I'm coming this far to get a dog bite. Yeah. So it was really nice. It was a good adventure, and I hope for many more to come.
Oh, okay, all right. What about you, Kevin?
My first international game was actually a friendly between, I think, Barbados and Cuba. That was played here in Barbados. But the first tournament I ever traveled for, CONCACAF holds you can call it a camp at Dallas Cup every year for first year FIFA officials. And I remember going to that tournament, and before I even did a game, my technical instructor came to me, and he told me, this is your first time on the international stage, and it may just seem like it's a youth tournament, that kind of stuff, but it's time to make an impression, that kind of stuff. So just make sure that you're attentive, and you're trying to get yourself in a place where you can be seen, that kind of stuff. And that talk kind of stuck with me on the plane to a point where I was overthinking it, because I was kind of nervous also. So I just kept playing it through my head, like, make sure you're always there, make sure you're attentive, make sure you're always doing this, doing that. And I remember as I came through the airport, the Dallas Cup, Texas Dallas, when we got to the airport, we were leaving to go to the bus. I remember they came inside and they said, okay, the bus is here for all of us to go. And I remember jumping out of the seat, moving to get into the bus. I think it was the third or fourth person in the line. And then somebody ran out of the airport and they were like, did anybody forget a bag? Is anybody leaving their bag? And then as I looked around, I was like, oh shoot, I don't have any of my bags whatsoever. So that's the first thing that I took away from my first trip overseas as an international referee, just be calm and just relax. But then at that tournament as well, I was fortunate enough to have assessors like John Nielsen, who is the head of CONCACAF assessors. Mr. Brian Hall was there as well. Dave Miko, who is the head of CFU referees. So there were quite a number of the higher assessors there just to let us know what it is to be on the international list. And in one of our assessments, I remember that they were showing videos of a referee, and the referee was wearing a shirt that was quite close to one of the team's colors. And I remember sitting next to the guy as the debrief was going on, and I think that was the moment that I understood what it was like to be an international referee, because even people may think something as small as a shirt color, does not have an impact on the game. But the kind of information, the kind of feedback that we got from something as small as a shirt color It made me understand that this is not what you're accustomed to at home. This is a different level of football where everything is scrutinized, everything matters, and everything is important for the game. So it's no longer just being comfortable at the level that you're at. Everything that you come out, you have to raise it, you have to get better, you have to develop and improve yourself because that's what the game requires. And like Jermaine, when I went to Dallas, the temperatures there were like 2 degrees outside, coming from Barbados, which is 30 degrees Celsius. So being in that kind of weather for the first time was my first time ever going to a cold country. And I remember refereeing the games, and I had on my short shirt, my short sleeve shirts, and my short pants, and that kind of stuff. And I was freezing, but you know, freezing isn't an excuse because your job is to be there. Your job is to make sure that you get it right. So those are the things that I would take away from my first ever international experience from that first Dallas Cup that I went to. And some of those lessons I still take with me right now as I try to continue my refereeing journey.
Okay. What about you, Shannon? You remember your first one?
My first tournament was I went to the under 15 tournament in Cayman Islands, and that was back in, I think it was 2014. Honestly, that tournament was like a wake up call because like it was my first time ever going to a major tournament, and then like I was actually alone from my country, and then it was like you have to be so disciplined because like you got training early in the morning, so everything be on time. But versus home, like sometimes like you don't always be on time. But to be honest, like it was hard at first, but I made the necessary adjustments to see out the 2 weeks thing.
Okay. And Wasna?
Yes, sir. My first international exposure was the regular U15 under 15 boys under 15 girls championship in Florida. However, my first exposure as a FIFA assistant referee was in the club shield, Concacaf Club Shield. That was my first experience. My takeaway point to that was I went after being exposed to those tournaments of U15 and U15 girls and U15 boys. I went with the mindset nothing was handed to you at all. It was hard work. So I just took it one game at a time from there. Every time I go to a tournament, and it was smooth flowing. After that, I went to a CONCACAF Nations League in Dominica, but I didn't have much experience like Mr. Easing with any dogs or anything. So it's pretty much cool for me. Yeah, man.
Yeah. Mianza, what about you?
Mine, my first experience on my international game. I went to the U15 Women's or Girls Championship, and it's like an academy to know more about refereeing, if I can say it so. And I think all of us went to that tournament. Mine was in 2016, and I can remember when I received my appointment, I start to prepare myself. I called my mother, I talked about it, and but the biggest thing was that I had to travel alone. And I never traveled alone so far away from my country. I used to travel, but with the national team, so I never was alone. But that time I had to do it alone, so I called my mother. She lived in Belgium, and I was telling her that I have to travel alone. How can I do it better? So she started telling me you have to read a lot because that is America, and I had to go to Orlando. So I was taking notes and I was checking about the airport. I received a note from CONCACAF about the airport and to look for a special person when I came out of the airline. So when I entered the airport in Miami, I was checking and reading because I was afraid to get lost on the airport. So I was reading everything I was seeing, but that cost me a lot of time. So I think I almost missed my flight, but lucky me, I found the gate before they left. So when I finally reached in Orlando, I reached the hotel at 3 a.m. I can remember in the morning. Then I found a letter in my room that says you have to be prepared for 7 o'clock. So it's 3 a.m. and I only had 3 hours or 4 hours to sleep to get ready to go to the field. So that night I didn't sleep because I was afraid that I will be late for the field. And that was one of my first experience on international level. Yes.
The fear of oversleeping, which is always on people's mind. Kevin, can you explain what it's like each year to try and maintain your position as a Premier Division referee?
Yeah, every year. So we're on a contract, a yearly contract with the Premier League. So our sort of like position is based on performance and fitness throughout the season. We have regular fitness assessments during the course of the season, where we have to undergo, physical sessions. We have to do body fat, everything like that, like most federations do anyway. We have to get to a certain level. If that drops below or our body fat goes too high, then we don't get appointed to Premier League games at all. And then we have performance based as well. So every game that we've got to hit a mark where we have to reach a certain standard. So the way we get marked, we don't have normal observers anymore. So a lot of our games now, or every one of our games in the Premier League, is like an evaluation system. So we'll referee the game, then we'll come off the game, and it's basically some guy or lady will sit behind a computer or laptop, and they'll go through the whole entirety of the game, and they'll look at every decision that we make, whether it's a throw in, a corner kick, a free kick, a yellow card, red card, or whatever it's going to be, whether that's correct or an incorrect decision, whether it's a difficult one or an expected decision. And we're expected to get 97% of decisions right in the game. So at the end of the season, all that goes into a merit table position, and we've got to maintain the standards that we're told at the start. And if we don't and we drop below them standards, then we run the risk of being removed from the Premier League. So it's quite tough. It's quite forceful. And with the evaluation system that we got, it doesn't miss anything at all. So we have to be on our toes for every game.
But that in listening to that, it sounds like in talking with other people that get on the FIFA list, that's what they're required to do on the list. As anyone else's FA that stringent in the local game to ensure that you're under contract to maintain all these requirements? I know because in the Premier League, obviously it's professional, and the rest of us kind of have either semi-professional or amateur leagues in our country. So trying to maintain just that for the FIFA part, how difficult do you find that yourself? Because you have to be disciplined in order to reach those goals. And I'm going to start with you, Wasna.
Right. So in my country, it's semi-professional. So like how I started back in about 2011, I did not start to do the top division games until about 2014, 2013. And I didn't start as a in the top division. Then now they give you a fourth official duties just to observe how the senior referees operate and so on. But before that, they give you some subdivision games where they come on and watch. It's not a detailed assessment as Kevin friend was saying, but it's like a bottom out that hey, he's getting better, or okay, let's give him a try up at the top division. And then from there now, they would decide, okay, once he meets fitness of the FIFA standard, they will put him up as an option to go onto the FIFA list. Then you had all small requirements come in for CONCACAF where you have to attend under 15 girls and boys championship before they can acknowledge your your status as a chief assistant referee. So that's how it is here in Antigua for us.
Yeah. What about you, Mian? So how does that work for you?
In Suriname, when I did the fitness test, I was fit. One time I passed the fitness test, so I only had to do games, and I started with the youth games. In Suriname, you have youth games, and after that they say you are fit and you're too focused. We will bring you to the first league. So no, not the first league, the second league. So then I started with the second league. I was doing games, and I was 21, so I was too young to come on the list. And then they said, okay, keep going with the league, with the second league, keep going. And after that, when I was 23, I started doing the first league, the highest league in Suriname, on the men's level, and then they put me on the list, and yeah, that was it for me.
I need to talk a little more to you because Bermuda plays Suriname in the World Cup qualifiers next. But Kevin, what about you?
When I first started, or at least here in Barbados, once you finish the referee's course, the referee course normally finishes a couple weeks before the start of the youth tournament. So once you finish the refereeing course, you would start to do some youth tournament games. And I remember when I finished the refereeing course, I finished tied with the highest grade. You know, that kind of got me encouraged to want to start refereeing. And that particular year, the youth tournament started late. So I was actually messaging the referee's manager like every week, like, is there any word when the football's gonna start, when it's gonna start? And eventually it did start. And I remember my first week of the youth tournament, I did an under 15 game, and one of the senior referees came to watch the game. And then the next week I was switched. I was switched from grounds and I was switched to the under 17 games. So that's basically how it went for me. I started to do some youth games, and then I was moved from youth to senior games. So then it became a basis where it was on both the physical aspect in terms of running the test, and then your performance when you were being watched or when you were being assessed when you were doing youth games or some of the lower division games. And my first appointment to the Premier League here in Barbados, funny enough, I was traveling with the fitness instructor, and we were on our way back from a training session. And he was having a discussion with me, about me showing interest, and I would have passed my fitness test at that point in time, and that my development was going really well. And while we were in the car on the way back home, he received a phone call, and one of the assistant referees for the Premier League that day, they were unavailable. And I was just sitting him next to him in the car, and he said, Kevin, so what are you doing later this evening? So I said I wasn't doing anything. He said, okay, no problem. You just got appointed to your first Premier League game. So that's where it started from. Honestly, it was a surprise that first time. And then I performed reasonably well in that first game. And then they just kept giving me games, and it went from there. So I spent about 2 years doing Premier League games before they nominated me for the under 15. So that's pretty much how development went in terms of moving from the refereeing course to actually doing Premier League games here in Barbados.
Okay. What about you, Shannon?
To be honest, I can't even remember doing much youth football, to be honest. But I know I can remember doing women's football, and then I ended up starting to do some second division games, and then I ended up running. The first time I ran the fitness test, it wasn't successful. I only ran 4 laps. So it was like, if you want to do this, you have to train and get serious. So then they got serious, and then I think the next fitness test, I was able to pass, and then I ended up doing second division, and then I moved from second division to Premier League. But I didn't do much youth football because I used to work on the weekends, so I wouldn't have the time to do youth football on weekends.
And Jermaine?
Yes, sir. How was it for me getting
Yeah,
started?
yeah.
Well, of course, it started out with some new games. You know, got promoted to do some other games, some more senior competition. And then my first Premier League game was quite nerve-wracking. Um, but it went well, and I must say, I've really grown through the entire process, the entire journey. And I must, if I could have done some things over, I surely would have, because I had some embarrassing moments during my time. But I guess it's a part of the journey.
Mm, okay. We'll get to those embarrassing moments soon. Kevin, can you recall your first season in the English leagues? What those were like? Only because I mean, obviously, we're talking thousands of people around the grounds, and when you blow the whistle, everyone around the ground looks at the one person blowing the whistle, and you have to make a decision.
Yeah. It's nerve wracking as hell, like anything, to be fair. But my first season, it was a bit of a baptism of fire because you train as much as you can through the close season. You develop yourself in the lower leagues, and then when you get to the Premier League, it's a totally different game. Everything's global. Everybody sees everything around the world, and it's frightening when you have to look at that. But when you get on the pitch, everything just comes naturally to you anyway. And I think one of the strangest things for me is one of my first games on the Premier League was at Wolves, but the opportunity that I got was actually at Aston Villa. I was fourth official to a former Premier League referee, Steve Bennett, and it was Aston Villa versus Chelsea, so it was first v six in the Premier League, and I was fourth man. So it's like, as fourth, you go there and you make the tea, you look after everybody, and hospitality at Aston Villa is pretty good. And in the lounge that you go, there's nice sandwiches and cakes and stuff like that. So I was filling my boots, thinking, "Oh, this is great! I like these little tea cakes and bit of quiche and what have you." So, I was a little bit full, so we went down to the dressing room area for the team sheet exchange, and that was okay. And then Steve Bennett and the two assistants went for a warm up, and he came back in and he was like, he was white as a ghost. And I'm like, "You're okay?" And he's like, "I feel really ill. I need to see the doctor." And basically, the doctor came in and said that you can't referee the game. To which he turned to me and he says, "Kev, you're going to referee it." And I just looked at him like, no chance. This is first v six in the Premier League, and I'm like, I'm a newbie. So I think I need to do a warm up. So I went for a little run with one of the assistant referees, Simon Beck, and I can remember just jogging around the pitch as a warm up, my belly full of food, thinking, "Oh my days, I'm going to be sick." It's like, and it was like, I went out. The referee the game. The game went brilliantly well, no problems at all. But I came off of that game, and there was so much media coverage about Steve coming off the game pre-match, and I taking over, and the actual game itself, because how big it was. And that was a realization of actually how huge the Premier League was. And it was sort of like, now when I'm fourth man anywhere, I tend not to eat anything at all, just water.
Mm. Lessons learned. Lessons
Yeah.
learned. Now, I want to ask the group, what has been one moment in a game, good or bad, that you will never ever forget, and you kind of talk about it whenever the opportunity invites itself. And I'm gonna go with you, Mianza, because I saw that big smile just now. That you must have one of those moments. So let's come with you.
If I understand your question good, then one of the law said that there is no offside from a goal kick. So I didn't know, or let me say, I didn't understand it good. So my first league game, or second, I don't know, can't remember it. I refereed the game with two top referees, and after the goal kick was taken, I was in position, and I saw one of the attacking player in an offside position, but that's not the offense. So when he received the ball, I went up with my flag And I said, offside, offside. So everybody was looking up, was looking at me and asked me question like, was that an offside? But I didn't know. So the referee blew the whistle and then he gave a drop ball. So, but I couldn't understand it. So when we reached the dressing room, he talked to me and he said to me, there is no offside for a goal kick. So from that moment, I understood it, and I never make that mistake again. So that was one of my mistakes I made, and I learned it for my life.
Great stuff. Wasman, what about you?
So for me, the moment I will always speak about from experience in referee would be one of those moments where when traveling, you have to prepare your mind for the day. So I traveled to one of the under 15. It was super hot that year. It was in the summer. So it was super hot, and mentally I was about to give up. So I was saying I would never get that. So every time I go somewhere, I always check weather, no matter how hot or cold. I always prepare. So that's an experience I took away, and I always remember to check the weather.
The weatherman. Shannon?
For me, in terms of like eating, I actually don't eat a lot of stuff, and so most of the time I go away try to like prepare myself because I've been to Haiti. The first time I've been to Haiti, that was one of the toughest tournaments I've been to in terms of like eating. I was not eating properly, so I wasn't able to train properly, and like basically 90 minutes of a game like felt like death because I didn't have the strength. I was very weak. So in terms of traveling, always make sure I leave home with pasta, like thing, food and stuff. So in case I get to a country where I know that I don't eat certain things, I'll still be able to survive and don't feel like I want to cry every night.
Yes. Jermaine?
Yes, sir.
What would that one moment be like for you?
One
Good
moment
or
that
bad?
one of the moments
Yeah.
that I can remember.
Yes.
Uh well, it wasn't an international game, but I had a local game, and a car broke down on me. I couldn't make it to the game. It was at a tough spot. I couldn't leave the car there, so I had to call him and tell him that I wasn't able to make it. The fourth official eventually did the game, and the game I had after that, I was basically suspended. I wasn't eligible for it anymore.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
the learning point from that was never try to fix a car by yourself.
Well, there you go. And Kevin?
Um, my funny moment from refereeing would probably be that same first Premier League game that I was appointed to. Because it was a surprise that I got the game, and then I was assistant referee one for the game. I was replacing one of the assistant referees that we were actually planning to send to the under 15s that year. And I remember doing this game, and the referee was a former FIFA assistant referee who had moved over to refereeing, being a center referee. And I remember doing the game, and the first 20 minutes, it was going okay. Like my nerves had settled. I was like, okay, it's just another regular game. And I remember the referee had given a yellow card to a guy early in the game. I think it was about 10 or 15 minutes into the game, he gave a guy a yellow card. And then a play comes towards the benches, and a player goes in with a reckless sliding challenge. And I remember seeing the referee pulling out his yellow card, but then he yellow carded the wrong player. So he yellow carded the guy that was on a yellow card already, and then gave him a red. And it was in front of the benches. And all I remember seeing was all of the players on the benches jumping off the bench, and then this big fight broke out in the middle of the field. And there I am, assistant referee one, closest assistant referee in my first Premier League game. And they have a mass confrontation, and I am just there like, what am I supposed to do? I don't know what to do. So I ended up just running straight in the middle of all the players trying to fight and trying to part people. So that's probably one of the funnier moments that I can remember from my refereeing career. My first ever Premier League game, my first ever situation of mass confrontation.
Kevin, what would that moment be like for you?
I've got quite a few, to be fair. So off the pitch, I think one of the strange thing, a funny thing for me, it wasn't funny at the time, was I'm very meticulous about getting my kit ready prior to a game the day before, making sure it's all sort of like ironed, it's all neat, my boots are cleaned, everything like that. So I packed my kit, and then I remember staying over. It was on a football league game, so a lower division game in England, and I stayed the night before on the Friday night and got into the hotel. And what I tended to do was unpack my kit. I then iron my kit again, making sure it's all nice and tidy. And I put it all away in the cupboard in the hotel, thinking, okay, I'll put it there nicely, and then I'll take it out in the morning and pack it again. So the morning comes, had my breakfast, come back, left for the game, got to the ground, went to unpack my stuff. There's no kit there. And I've left the kit in the hotel. And as a great fourth official he was, I actually said to him, right, your job today is not to make tea, is actually to go back to the hotel and get me kit. And to be fair to me, he went back and got my kit and brought it back. And nobody was any the wiser, which was great. And I've learned the lesson now that when I stay in a hotel, I do not pack my kit away in a cupboard anymore, because I know that I'll just forget it. But it's, it's one of those lessons learned. And I think on the pitch for me, funny moments of I've been knocked out a few times as a referee. They say football's not supposed to be that physical a game as a referee, but a couple of times that I've given a goal kick. I was at Leyton Orient, which is the London-based team in League Two at the time, and I gave a goal kick and thought, as a young referee as I was then on the Football League, I thought I'd be really dynamic, give the goal kick, turn and accelerate up to the halfway line to get into position. This will really sort of like sell myself to the observer at the time. So I gave the goal kick, turned around, accelerated, not realizing then the 6'4" defender was actually running the other way. I actually ran into him. He stayed standing up and I got knocked out. I was unconscious for about 20-25 seconds and came round with smelling salts and had to be carried off the pitch, which was a little bit embarrassing to say the least. And then I think 5 years ago, we get injured as referees and what have you. That happened. I was fourth official on a game. It was Bournemouth versus Southampton. So it's a keen local derby when there was fans there. So this was about 5 years ago. Fourth official, no problems at all. Yeah, my duties as substitutions, look after the technical areas. Pretty straightforward. It comes to half time. Mike Dean was the referee and said to me, we're going to add 1 minute on, so you need to put the board up for one minute. I'm like, yep, no problems. So I type it in the board. I go down to pick the board up. And sometimes, when you go down quickly and you get back up again, you get a little bit lightheaded. So I went down, picked the board up, came up a little bit lightheaded. Next thing I know, I collapsed. I banged my head on the side of the dugout at Bournemouth, only to come round in the medical room. And I'd knocked myself out unconscious again for about 30-35 seconds. So I had to be taken off the game as fourth official. So I think it's probably the only time a fourth official actually had to come off through injury. So a little bit strange and a bit comical. Mike Dean was quite good to give me a bit of banter about it.
Now I'm going to ask each and every one of you, and Kevin, being that I already have you up, what advice would you have for young persons in various countries or watching this that want to aspire to become a international assistant referee, or anything past just doing local games? What advice would you have for any youngster right now?
Do you want me to start with that one?
Yes, please. I'm sorry.
Sorry, yeah. That's okay, no problems. So I think for me, anybody who's starting out and wants to get to the top level of the game, no matter what country you're in, a lot of it's like learning, developing, and growing yourself as a referee and a person. There'll be many challenges out there, both good and bad, within refereeing. It's like a roller coaster ride. But I always think it's, think yourself as a sponge and taking information from the relevant people that you need to. Don't go looking at like 20 different people to get answers from. Find those people that are close to you that you trust, and sort of like lean on them to actually give you that expertise and support to guide you in the right way. But always look to try and invest in developing yourself further, whether that be physical or a mental side of the game. And I think we all know when we look at ourselves as persons, whether you're a referee on the pitch or off the pitch, what we're good at, what we're not so good at. And it's tapping into that and saying, okay, what do I need to improve on as a referee, both on and off the field of play, and always striving to try and be that better, that 1% more each time that you do. But don't, and also, and there's a lot about this, but don't feel afraid of making mistakes. One of the biggest things within refereeing is we're going to make mistakes. We're going to make errors in the game. That's part and parcel of what we do. One of the things that I tell my referees that I look after in this country is just embrace that. Embrace the fact that you're going to make an error, you're going to make a mistake. And it's that finding out afterwards why and how we can rectify that and how we can actually move forward and learn from that, because that'll make us stronger and a better referee going forward.
Kevin, what advice would you have for youngsters?
Be dedicated. Like Kevin said, this isn't an easy journey, and refereeing at the international level is quite a difficult job. And like he said, there will be mistakes, but dedication plays a big part in making it on the international level. Every day isn't going to be easy. And there are going to be days where you feel like you just don't want to put any work. And I think the most important thing is just to be dedicated to the task. There will be hard days, but there is joy at the end of the tunnel. So the hard work that you do put in at the beginning is going to be worth it at the end. So just remain dedicated to the task and stay the course. Don't get frustrated by the difficulties of the job, but rather embrace it and make it a learning experience for you to move forward from. If there's one thing that I could say, that's probably what I would say to somebody.
What about you, Jermaine?
Yeah, a message to a young upcoming referee, I would say be resilient, be persistent, dedicated, as Kevin would say, just said. A lot of challenges are out there. It took me a while before I became international. 20 persons in my country, they came through they got the same challenges. They had to be performing at a top level before they actually got promoted to the FIFA ranks. So, you have to be dedicated, persistent, resilient, and actually determined to get to the goal that they want.
Cool. All right. And Wasna?
All right, for me, just to add to what my colleagues were saying is you gotta stick the task, set a goal. So if you set a goal, say you want to be international, keep working. No matter how small it is, you work and work towards your goal. Yes, there are gonna be mistakes. You have to learn from those mistakes. But don't be afraid to try because you want to make a mistake. Mistakes are what make you. Some of the best referees that we know made a lot of mistakes, but it was what made them. So don't give a thought. Just join and stick the course. Okay.
Okay. Good advice. Shannon?
So for me, I guess it's to set dreams and goals and stay committed. I mean, it's not an easy road, but as Kevin said, like find people that you could trust. Because then when you find people that you could trust, then they'll be able to help you and like listen to your assessors, listen to the feedback you get, and then like if you get like when you get feedback, just like set goals and targets to work on these to achieve goals so you could continue to be on the right path.
Cool. And last but not least, what's next? Sorry, Minta?
Yes.
Niensa, sorry.
For the upcoming referees or referees that will go on the international list, as my colleagues already said, you have to have a goal, be dedicated, and the three things that you have to focus on is your fitness, the law of the game, and football understanding. Find someone you can trust, as Shannon said. Find someone you can trust. Look up to the other referees on the FIFA list, and stay committed to your goals. You have to set goals because it's not an easy road, and you will make mistakes. Yes, you will make mistakes, but you get chances to change, to fix your mistakes. Every game is another game, so you will have another game to do what to do better. Yes, that's it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I'm going to bring Mr. Williams in, the head of refereeing, just to have a final word on this evening. Mr. Williams? You got to unmute. You got to unmute, Mr. Williams.
My apologies.
There you go.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to everybody for taking the time out to join our show. Especially to Kevin. You know, when I first got email was going to be joining, I was like, wow, a Premier League referee can be a guest on our show. And I'm sure a lot of people are watching because of, you know, Bermuda is a place that definitely watches the Premier League. So I just want to say thank you very much. And I hope that we can invite you back at a later date. To the CONCACAF referees, I want to say congrats to Wasner and Kevon, as I know you have appointments coming up. And we'll be looking forward to inviting you back to share your experience with our referees as well. Jermaine and Shannon and gents, I know that, well, Mimi as they call you, and you guys are appointments. Mimi, I know that you've been shortlisted for the Women's World Cup. Hopefully we get to see you on that as well. But I just want to say thank you guys for sharing your stories and words of encouragement to our referees. I look forward to see you somewhere on TV in the near future. Thank you very much.
Okay. To everyone, I say thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and good luck in your international commitments, as well as Kevin in the Premiership. Only a few weeks left, and then you can put your feet up.
Definitely, yeah. I think I'll definitely put my feet up. It's, I think we need it. But no, thank you to everybody. It was good to meet everybody on here as well. If there's anything else I can do for any of the federations or anything like that, just ask me. I'm willing to do anything, to presentations or what have you. So I'll only be too happy to do anything else that you want us to do. I've got family out in Bermuda as well, which is good.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Okay. Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Good night.